This conference will now be recorded.
My fault. We're waiting for the next person to come alive.
I'm admiring Councilman Davula's Christmas colors here. All he's lacking is the white gray beard and a little hat.
Red nose.
I don't have that. Now, if I had a beard, it would be dark also.
Roy, do you expect Paul to show up?
I'm sorry?
Do you expect Paul?
Oh, no, sir. No, sir. He's officially resigned.
There's Gage, though. Hi, Gage.
But to answer your question, Mr. Kaysen, it is very normal in many ordinances to exempt decks, but only those that are very close to grade at the highest point. And typically you'll see one that says if it's no higher than 2 feet or so above finished grade, that's okay. And that they are exempt, but to exempt them no matter how tall they are, that would be frightening in our jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And the same thing would be like above ground pools and the decks surrounding them. Some of those could be enormous.
Well, we exempt pools, whether they're above ground or in ground.
Right.
And
They
there's
are.
there's no stipulation of height as far as how
Right.
high above ground they can be.
Well, normally they're surrounded by decks though, when they're that high. So, and that's where we enforce that.
Hey, gentlemen, while we're waiting on a quorum, Roy, I came in right as you were talking about, I heard the word railing. And, something I'm doing, which I believe you're aware of, and I'm just saying this because it seems appropriate for the conversation at hand, is with my pool and decking that's under construction, there's one area near the outdoor cabana where I'm not doing railing, but instead I've got these big wide planters in lieu of railing.
And that's allowed.
Yeah, which is a neat workaround.
Yeah, but in your case, like I said, it's a security issue because of the pool. We were talking about, in a setback or whatever, but, it was hilarious. There was a movement a few years ago about these things called little free libraries that people were, they were kind of these contraptions people were putting in their front yards, and some people were saying, oh, that's a structure and it's a setback. And I thought that was a little bit absurd. But
yeah, that's unreasonable. You're referring to like these like loner little library drop boxes like you might see at a Jellystone park.
Well, and flagpoles, but Mr. Kaysen's point is well taken. I wish we had a better, ordinance that did all that. But like I said, part of our problem here, that we have to deal with is taking things out of 3 that don't really belong there and in 14 and so on and so forth. And we were making pretty good progress with all that until COVID, and then we kind of slowed down.
And I understand that now the P&Z cannot.
I'm sorry?
I think we have a quorum.
Oh, yeah, we do, for sure. You're ready to start.
Work session like we were doing.
Hey, babies, I got all these.
Oh, there it is.
Hors d'oeuvres.
I was going to give you a call, Gage.
Yeah. You want this heated up? This is the case from Lupe.
Okay, I think since we have a quorum, it's time to start the meeting. And I have 7:04. We need to have a temporary secretary. Jim, do you feel up to it?
You say temporary?
Yeah,
Well,
till we elect next month.
Yes. No, I don't know.
Let me see. Yeah, and can I get a tape of this meeting?
yes, sir. It'll be a video file this time, not just audio, but it works. Same thing. It just plays in the video player.
Okay. I got it then.
All right, Jim. We'll expect a fine report as usual, up to your standards. Before we start the meeting, Paul Roberts, do you have any other comments that are not pertaining to the matter at hand? Public comments?
No, sir. No non-agenda item comments. Thank you very much for asking, though. I appreciate it.
All right. Arch, you have anything you'd like to comment on?
May I reserve the time for comments for at the end of the meeting?
Sure. We'll make note of that. The matter at hand is a variance request for a driveway at the residence at 21710 Surrey Lane, going from sagebrush to a utility building at the rear of the property. Since I'm got my screen occupied, I can't read it. Can somebody read it out loud, what the variance is requesting?
I can read it if you want, Scott. Hang on for a second. Let me find it. Oh yeah, it says, okay, consider it's 20-1741-VAR, consideration of an application to allow for additional total driveway width beyond the limit imposed by design standards referenced in the Code of Ordinances at 21710 Surrey Lane, Barkay Ranches, Plat 8, Lot 8049 Alpha, a property with a rear property line that fronts on Sagebrush Trail.
Okay. Before we have discussion, I'd like to ask if the city has any comments pertaining to this variance.
Yes, sir. And just to give you some historic background, we've all seen violations in places with too much driveways and, excessive widths. Quite frankly, the Public Works Department wasn't really carefully reviewing the design standards that we had that were in our ordinance, and they kind of slipped by. But now we have an engineer in training working over there, and he's while he's checking the drainage on these driveways, he's now informing us when they don't meet the design standards. And we tossed around the idea is, should we come up with something that kind of recognizes the, circumstances in Lago Vista where they're really, they're not normal. These aren't normal residential lots. They've been, a bunch of smaller lots consolidated. But at the end of the day, we couldn't come up with a standard that didn't potentially relax the safety of a normal lot. So we kind of threw up our hands and saying, look, the bottom line is the best way to handle this is just make them come in front of the Building and Standards Commission and ask you guys to deny them when they're unsafe and to approve them when they're fine.
Do you have comments as to whether it's safe or unsafe, this case?
Oh, yes, sir. This one, it's on a lot that's almost has no traffic or no other houses on it. It has frontage separate from, there's no driveways in the vicinity. And that's typically what you're worried about, is excessive driveways making them too close to other driveways.
Okay. Comments from the commission?
Roy, I have a question for you. I'm looking at I'm looking at this drawing that the new garage, it's in red, and then there's this yellow thing that's part of the driveway, and it looks like it's staggered. I guess my question would be is why is it staggered? Why can't they make that driveway just straight in?
Well, but we once again, that's considered unsafe to have more than 24 feet. In fact, our preference is that it's 18 feet wide through the right of way, and then if you need wider, then you transition it to wider on your property. You know, it's
Okay.
going back to the safety standard. So, you know, that's another thing that they never really enforce. They let you make it wider. Now, is this the preferred way to do a transition? It's not. You know, normally it's smoother. Normally there's a curve there or an angle where it gets wider. And I drew that for this gentleman. He prefers to have as much concrete as possible.
Okay.
And that's what he's shown.
Is he planning
Now-
to park some of the vehicle there?
That's my guess is he wants to park stuff outside of the garage as well. But it's got a lot of garage in there, as you can see on the floor plan. The reason it's so wide is because there's two separate garages there.
Well, right now, there's not a lot of people that live on that street, but that's not to say 2
Right.
years from now, there won't be a lot of people living on that street.
Well, and once again, that's why we limit it to what would we allow for a, you know, if it were occupied, 24 is the max. So that's what we limit him to.
Yeah, all those people that are gonna be living on that street are likely gonna have 24-foot driveways as
Right.
well. So is it just gonna be one more, you know, just like a normal
Right.
set of driveways?
Right. And as you can imagine, you know, imagine if this was one small, you know, 80-foot lot with two 24-foot driveways. That wouldn't be safe. And that's what our design standards are intended to prohibit.
Okay.
Other comments?
I think too, if you carry it a little further and you look at, you know, I know we don't look at hardship on the building committee, but we look at, I think Aaron said we need to look at any substantial harm we might cause him by not granting it. Because of the way his lot is, his house occupies the whole Surrey Lane side. So there's no way he could access his back lot through the
Right.
front lot. So you're denying him any vehicular access to his back portion of his property if you don't grant him the variance.
I don't know that you're denying him. I think what this boils down to is there a safety concern? And if not, then I don't see a reason not to approve it.
Right, I'm just piling on. I'm just adding safety concern.
Yeah. I understand his point. Right. Because, you know, his existing driveway is 20 feet. So all he's got left is 4. If you were only to give him 4 feet of driveway, he would, you know, you would do him substantial damage.
Further discussion? Any? Someone want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
may I speak with public comments, please?
Go ahead, Paul.
Thank you, sir. Just one question. Should the committee not grant the variance, could he effectively achieve the same result that he's seeking by doing the concrete within code, but then build it out with peat gravel?
No, we don't allow that.
Okay. That was my only question. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
And one of the reasons is you'd be surprised how much those kind of materials tear up the asphalt.
I didn't realize that. Interesting.
Yeah. In
Well,
fact,
go ahead, Roy.
well, one of the things that disturbs me every morning, you know, I drive by the quarries on Anderson Mill where they don't make those trucks. You know, they don't have a hose down station before they get on the right of way. That brand new street's not going to last very long with all that crushed limestone everybody's driving on. It wears the road surface very, very fast. You do not want aggregate rock or anything like that in your public streets. You'd be surprised how quick you'll be repairing them if you do.
So is it on here? Are we going to hear from the applicant?
No, you know, he's not here, but you know, he's aware that he's doing this, and
Okay.
he missed one of the P&Z meetings on his accessory building too. He just kind of forgets sometimes.
So you don't see a safety issue here? Is that what you're telling me, Roy?
That is correct.
Okay.
You know, and like I said, there are a lot more factors in it than this. There just aren't many here. Distances from you know, intersecting streets, other driveways, what's across the street. You know, anybody that is going to build will be able to react to this driveway and should consider safety, you know, their own safety when they locate their garage and driveways.
Any further discussion? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the variance as drawn on the diagram that Roy did.
Well, that's not my diagram. That's the applicant. I
Okay,
did
the
a different-
applicant's diagram.
Mine had less concrete. He wanted more concrete.
So here's a second.
Second?
Jim,
Yes.
all those
Second.
in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
All right. It's unanimous for the small group we have. The next item on the agenda is a consent agenda to review or approve the minutes for the meeting of November the 2nd, is it?
Yes, sir. I believe.
Do we have any comments on the minutes?
Oh, excuse me. It's November 4. I'm sorry.
What?
It's November 4. I misspoke.
Yeah, November 4th. Do we have any comments on the minutes? Any corrections? None? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes for November the 4th, raise your hand. Unanimous again? Mr. Dalbo, you have comments?
You need to turn on your mic.
Sorry. Yes, sir. Just a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This is a very small group that we have right now, and we will be adding members to this group probably at the end of the month. We're going to be filling 3 positions as it turns out. The 3 people that are vacating, you obviously know that Paul Prince is moving on to become a council member. He has moved on to become a council member and has resigned. So his position will be filled by a new person. Jacob Lance and Stormy Johnson did not request to be reinstated, so their positions are also open. So beginning in January, we will have fairly new people filling those spots. I can't tell you who they are, but we have several applicants to consider. That's about it. I feel very honored to have worked with Jacob, Paul, and Stormy, and I wish them all the best if they happen to view this video taping of this meeting. They've been very well attended as far as the meetings went. They were all very helpful in making a lot of decisions, and I feel honored to have been able to work with them. Those are all my comments. Thank you.
Well, thank you, George. We appreciate that. I didn't hear all of what you said because of some sort of interference, but appreciate your comments.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other future agenda items other than the election of officers for next year?
Well, I think we should consider what Roy was talking about and getting rid of that one thing that's in conflict, that it says it's exempted, and then you go to chapter 14 and you say you got to do it, but then in chapter 3 it says it's exempted.
We do need to do
Tim was
that.
talking about it.
Yeah, there may be more than that. That may be, the first task is to make a list, to go through all that stuff and find the stuff that is highest priorities that are in conflict. There's more than that.
Those items were discussed before the meeting. I'm not sure I know any of the details. I assume it's kind of a general revamp that you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody want to describe it in any more specific terms?
Well, and I don't know that we should go into that now, but before you have your new members, but it's very efficient, for these subcommittees to, generate these task lists. I know COVID may slow us down a bit, but those conversations are very, very helpful to ferret out the problems.
Okay, the only reason I asked for details was so we could identify on the agenda items what we might be discussing.
Yeah.
I was just trying to find a way to say what you're trying to communicate.
Well, I mean, my recommendation, and of course, would be to, next month, have a discussion about how to go about finding conflicts and prioritizing needed changes in Chapter 3.
So basically, you're saying a general review of our Chapter 3?
Well, a discussion, yes, about Chapter 3 on your next agenda.
Okay.
Scott, you have a question from Paul.
I'm sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem, sir. Thank you for recognizing me. I appreciate it. I just have a general question, and it comes from not understanding all the processes for the committee and city processes in general. And if Mr. Councilman Davila is allowed to answer, he might be the appropriate person to answer the question. But regarding possible things that need to be cleaned up, such as Roy's advocating for in Chapter 3, there's the upcoming city council meeting. The city is going to be looking at a charter review committee in the very near future. And my question is, are things like the items such that Roy would like to see cleaned up in Chapter 3, is that typically done at the committee level, or is that done at the charter review committee level? I'm not familiar. I don't know. I would just like to get educated, if you please.
Sure.
You want me to?
Well, let me just talk about the review committee for the city charter. That committee will just look at the city charter itself. They'll go over it in fine detail to see if there's any language or any vagaries like that need to be cleaned up, or if there's some conflicting information that we have in the charter that conflicts with some of the ordinances and things of that nature. Those are the kinds of things that will be looked at. And,
I see.
There may or may not be any changes suggested by that review committee. This also presupposes that we will actually seat the charter review committee. That's just one of the agenda items that we have for
I see.
discussion. And hopefully we'll do that because it's time to do that. It's something that gets done every 3 or 4 years. And so this is the third year from the last review. So it would be an appropriate time to have that discussion.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Sure, go ahead.
If I'm understanding Councilman Davila correctly, if Roy had not, if these inconsistencies or contradictions were not, if the committee wasn't aware of these at this time, and the Charter Review Committee were to identify incongruities or contradictions or things that need to be addressed, that would the Charter Review Committee fix those things, or would they simply delegate that to the respective committees such as the Building and Standards? I'm assuming the latter is the answer to my question.
That's a good assumption because the Building and Standards Commission will review whatever is recommended to look over and make any changes to language or content regarding Chapter 3. The Charter Review Committee really has nothing to do with anything other than the governance of the city, really the principal guide.
Yeah, actually, and it does, it says Chapter 3 plus any aesthetic issues. So it actually goes a little beyond Chapter 3. It's often hard to determine when something is aesthetic versus, does it belong in the zoning ordinance, those kind of things. But, there is that a little extra language, if you will.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for entertaining my question. I appreciate it.
We appreciate your coming, Paul, and participating and showing interest in our work. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to discuss before we adjourn?
Yep. I just wanted to ask Roy. I wanted to ask Roy. I had heard that P&Z could not participate in the subcommittee work sessions.
They found a state statute that says it's not that they can't participate, but they have to be treated as public meetings. There's a state statute that requires that. So that means that, we can't have them at people's houses anymore, probably, but we can do the same thing up here as long as we allow the public to come and.
We can't bring beer, right?
I'm sorry?
So we cannot bring beer, right?
Well, not unless we get some. And the scotch is definitely out, so.
And I can take care of that before I come.
There you go.
You want me to put this in the minutes, Scotty?
Absolutely.
I didn't hear that.
Wasn't important.
It wasn't important. Okay.
And I tease them about it, but I remind people on P&Z that before we started having those, and that's what you guys just having those conversations and letting me listen. We spent 4 meetings one time determining what the colors were going to be on the ridgepole. Okay. Ever since we've had those subcommittees, we hadn't had that problem. And I always remind them of that.
Yeah, I think they were very, very fruitful.
Well, you saved me tremendous amount of time before I started knowing what y'all were worried about. And there is no way I know what's on the mind of the citizens unless I hear that. And I don't hear those in those formal meetings. I don't.
Well, we can still have our subcommittee meetings as long as we don't have another commission involved. Correct?
Well, it just can't be P&Z. They're the only ones that are burning.
Because it's a commission?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can invite other people if you want to, but if it's a formal subcommittee appointed by P and Z, they can't, it's got to be a public meeting.
I see. Okay.
And we weren't aware of
All
that.
right. Well, unless we have other items to discuss, which I feel we have exhausted, I'm ready to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Any objections? I'm not going to take a vote. I don't think I have to take a vote.
I don't think you do either.
Nope.
Thank you much.
So the meeting was adjourned at 7:30.
Thanks
Thank you.
all.
Merry Christmas to all you guys.
Thank all of you for participating, especially you, Paul, showing your interest. I appreciate that.
A pleasure.
Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you too, sir. But I plan to see most of you before then, one way or another. Probably on the golf course. Do you play golf, Paul? Oh,
No, sir, I do not. I have 3 children, ages 11, 9, and 8, and a wife and a business that I run. So I stay pretty busy, to be honest, and I'm trying to get a little bit more involved with the city, and I find